Thank you, everybody. I think everybody's been introduced. I'm Suzanne Thompson with the Arts and Cultural Bridge Foundation. Founded the foundation in 2015 to have experiences just like this, to take people to Cuba and bring Cuban artists here and have dialogue for a better understanding between people. So I want to thank Beyond Baroque for allowing us to be here today, and I want to thank all of you for showing up and curious and supportive of Cuba. Our current Arts and Cultural Bridge Foundation project is Ase Poetry Slam, Cuban Slam Poets Anthology. And Francisco Letelier, who's with us today, did the epilogue for this. And Danny Glover also put in some comments on it. So we're very happy to do that. It's out on El Martillo Press, and it's being delivered tomorrow by Matt Sedillo to the poets in Cuba. So I'd like to introduce again, Yvonne Salinas. And then after Yvonne, I want to talk about a little who's here today. And I think, Yvonne, you've pretty much told people about Beyond Baroque, right? So is there anything else you want to say? Or should we just let the guys talk?
Just say.
Come on up. Anyway, and then we have Luis Rodriguez, the former poet laureate for the city of Los Angeles, and his beautiful wife, Trini, here with us today. And he's going to share some poetry in Spanish and also in English. And then we will have Yasser and David come up, and I will introduce them. David he studied in his BA in Foreign Languages, University of Havana, in 2016, postgraduate diploma in Foreign Affairs, Higher Institute of International Relations, and he speaks Spanish, English, French, and Portuguese. Anybody speak French here? Portuguese? Okay. Spanish or English? Okay, that's what we'll do. And his experience is that in 2018, he was the official at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and in 2018 to 2022, the attaché assigned to the United States General Division, Ministry of Foreign Affairs. 22 to 20 current, he's the second secretary assigned to the Embassy in Cuba in the United States, Washington, D.C. And he was part of an official team in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Cuba that organized an international event that executed the 500th anniversary of the city of Havana. And he was also part of an organization that executed a summit in 2021 with CELAC, which is what does the CELAC stand for? Latin American Scholars?
Latin American States.
Community of Latin American States. Okay. And David represents the country in the fields of culture and political sector. And he's married and has a son. And we also have Yasser Ibarra. He studied in informatics, science, engineering in the University of Computer Sciences of Havana, and other studies, master's degree in international relationships, Higher Institute of International Relations, Raul Garcia, Cuba in 2011. He speaks English and Spanish. His professional history, he was 2011 to 2015, official at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. 2015 to 2019, he's the third secretary in the Cuban Embassy in Ecuador. So if you have any friends there, you may know each other. 2019 to 2023, second secretary in the U.S. General Directorate. And then 2023 to current, he's the first secretary at the Cuban Embassy in the United States. And he works with solidarity organizations, labor unions, and the sports sector. So we're very happy to have him, and he's married and has one daughter. So I'm going to invite our wonderful Luis Rodriguez to come up and share his talents with us. Luis and Trini have a Tia Chucha's bookstore and cultural center in Silmar, and he can tell you more about that. Thanks, Luis.
Thank you. Gracias. Thank you so much. So it's an honor to be here. Es un honor estar con ustedes. I just want to say a little bit. I've been very active in this city for so long, over 55 years, as a radical, revolutionary thinking organizer. And it's really good to be here. I've been to Cuba, which is amazing and beautiful, and all over Latin America and other parts of the world. And the poetry has opened the door, and I think poetry is very important, but I've also been active in so many ways because I have multi-genre books. I have been working with gang kids. And one of the areas of work that I do is work in prisons. I've been doing work in prisons for 43 years. And it started a few years after I got out of my trouble. I'm formerly incarcerated, but I got out early enough, but I went back and I do creative writing, poetry, as well as healing circles. And I've been doing it all over the country, but mostly in California. And then because of my reputation, I've gone to Mexico, El Salvador, Guatemala, Nicaragua, Argentina. I went to prisons in all those places, as well as in England and even in Italy. So what I'm going to do is share a poem, and I'm going to do it in Spanish and English, that saved my life more than once. You wonder about poetry, can it save your life? In this case, it absolutely did. Some of the worst prisons I've ever been to were in Central America and in Mexico. And I'm talking about prisons that the guards can't even go inside. They only guard the periphery. Because the inside is run by cartels in Mexico. In El Salvador, there's no cartels there, but there is gangs, as you know. And I work with all of them. We're all the maras, and I went to 10 prisons there. So I'm very familiar with how things run. But the worst prison was in Chihuahua. My family's from Chihuahua. And so I ended up going to this prison. And the thing was, the warden didn't want me to go inside. But they had a riot in which 25 people were killed. That's what happens in Latin America. When they have the riots, they don't just kill one or two, they kill a whole mess of people. And this is a year before 25 people were killed. So I was going to speak to the group that got hit the hardest. And so the warden says, I don't want you coming here. This is a rough place. And I go, well, I've been to rough places. And he goes, well, tell me when. I go, wherever I was, I told him in El Salvador. And he goes, you've been to the prisons in El Salvador? Yeah. You work with the maras? I work with the maras. Okay, you can come in. He figured if I could do that, I can go anywhere. So I went into prison, and there was 400 guys in a small room, maybe about the size, 400 guys, though. And they were all stuffed in there. And I'm doing poetry and talking in Espanol. I'm just going back and forth. And at a certain point, the warden comes in with two bodyguards. And I didn't know at the time that he'd never walked inside that prison. And so all of a sudden, these 400 guys stand up, and then they start yelling and screaming at him. Quejando que no hay nada de comer, no hay talleres, no tenemos nada que hacer. Just complaining that there was nothing to do, no food. And all of a sudden, I felt this, they're going to kidnap us. Because these are cartels. These aren't street gangs. And I knew, oh my God, they're going to kidnap us. They're going to kidnap the warden. And I had no weapon. I had no arms. And all I had was poetry. So what I did is I started with this poem, but there's many other poems that I started reading. I just went in front of those guys back and forth, one poem after another. And I got there and I distracted them to the point where the warden and his guard walked out while they were looking at me. And then they looked back and he's gone. They calmed down and they all sat down and we had a good time. That's what happens in prisons. One moment, things are calm. Next moment, you may not make it. And then next moment, everything's okay. Things happen really quickly like that. So I'm going to read this poem in Spanish and English, the poem that kind of saved my life that day. Se llama Pedazo a Pedazo. And I presented this book of poetry that was published in Mexico 3 years ago. Todos los caminos llevan a casa, all roads lead home. They're going to put the English version, the new cover. But it's Polingo poetry that was done in the city of Mexico by Chicanx Sin Fronteras Publishing House. So I'm going to read you this poem. And I wrote it, many, many years ago, one of my earliest poems, but I read it a lot because it just seems to be a signature poem. First in Spanish. Pedazo a pedazo te desgarran, pelándote capas de tu ser, mintiendo sobre quién eres, hablando por tus sueños. En el escuadrón de sus ojos tú eres un criminal, vistiéndote en una chaqueta de mentiras, hecha de acero a la medida, eres tu retrato perfecto. Quítatela, haz tu propio manto, Desafía a los interrogadores, observa bien la muerte en su mirada, di que no te rendirás, di que no los creerás cuando te nombran de nuevo, di que no aceptarás sus reglas, sus colores, sus morales depravados. Aquí tienes un camino, aquí puedes cantar la victoria. Aquí no eres una raza conquistada, víctima perpetua, un rostro sombrío en la tormenta. Manos y mentes están escupiendo un santuario. Usa estas armas contra ellos. Usa tus talentos dados. No son de piedra. Piece by piece. Piece by piece, they tear at you, peeling away layers of being, lying about who you are, speaking for your dreams. In the squalor of their eyes, you are an outlaw, dressing you in a jacket of lies, tailor-made in steel. You fit their perfect picture. Take it off. Make your own mantle. Question their interrogators. Eyeball the death in their gaze. Say you won't succumb. Say you won't believe them when they rename you. Say you won't accept their codes, their colors, their putrid morals. Here, you have a way. Here, you can sing victory. Here, you are not a conquered race, perpetual victim, the sullen face in the thunderstorm. Hands and minds that are carving out a sanctuary. Use these weapons against them. Use your given gifts. They are not stone. Muchas gracias. Thank you.
Thank you, Luis. That was beautiful. I just want to do some brief introductions here. We have Gloria Vando. She's on the Venice Arts Council with myself and also on the board here at Beyond Baroque. Ed Ferrer is with the Venice Arts Council, with the Arts and Culture Bridge Foundation. He's one of my board members and very supportive of Cuba. Right behind him is Walter Lippmann, who runs the Cuban News Service, which has been a tremendously valuable service if you want to know what's going on in Cuba. And Walter has dedicated his life to that. He's really done an amazing, amazing job with that. And then you've met Luis and his wife, Trini, and Francisco Letelier there is going to help. He's also a poet and a wonderful muralist and an artist, and he's been to Cuba as well. And then when Miya and your friend next to you, and then we have up in the back, we have our driver, Ron, right? John, almost got that. And then Mark, is that you, Mark? Mark Friedman. Mark Friedman's been doing some great solidarity work with the unions and other organizations, and he's helping the guys tomorrow with their tour and what's happening. He also has an event tomorrow night down in the San Pedro, and there's a flyer on the desk at 6:00. If you want to check that out, it would be really good. And he's also raising money for humanitarian aid. So just kind of, can you tell me what you want to hear from these guys so that they can gear their information that they're providing to you? I know some people are artists and want to go to Cuba. Some people have already been to Cuba. People want to know about what's going on right now and how you can help. Are those some of the things to cover? And any other questions or things? Teto, okay. Teto? And he's been working with the Solidarity Organization as well, right?
Yes.
Great, thank you, thank you. Okay, David or Yasser, who wants to go first? And I don't have any chairs up here. Maybe after they're finished, Eric, are there chairs somewhere we can pull so that Francisco or Trini, did you have a question?
Yeah, I just wanted to know, is there a marked difference now that the Trump administration?
Okay, I'll let them talk to that.
Well, hello everyone. Before to answer any question, I consider that it is appropriate to give you a short brief about how is our work here in the United States and what are we doing right now in order to defend our people or to defend our country. Well, as I will try to speak in English because I don't know, apparently I made a mistake in my biography because I know I don't speak English. I try to do it, you know. Well, my friends, as my dear Susan before explained, we are the deeply honored to work with the Solidarity Organization here in the United States. In a particular sense, for me, it's more easy to work here than for the other colleagues at the embassy, because at the end of the day, we work with friends. Right now in this place, I can assure that I feel more safe, more quiet, because I am not being questioned because about Cuba constantly. That is the image that we receive when we go outside the embassy and go to the Congress, for example, to the federal institution to talk with the counterparts in the United States. In every time they are trying to asking very hard questions and try to challenge the reality of Cuba. And that is our main objective here, is try to show how really Cuba is, how we are facing right now with our secrets. We need to be honest all the time, because it's the only way that we can convince you, that we can obtain your support for the Cuban people mostly, not only for the Cuban cause. Our battle is a survival battle. Is our main goal is to try to obtain the more capacity of support for the Cuban people right now. That's the work that we mainly do. That's why it's not difficult for me to work with the Solidarity Organization, to work with the unions, but at the same time work with the sports sector, because at the end of the day, my work here is try to create bridge. Our work here is try to strengthen ties with the American society and try to go to every corner of this big country, because it's a big country, and talk with all people possible about Cuba. Because the news that you receive in the U.S. American media is failed, is a big lie, is of course according to the proposal of the few people into the government of the United States that want to suffocate Cuba, surrender the Cuban Revolution. Having said that, I would like to introduce my colleague, David Ramirez, because not only because he's the cultural attaché, because he worked with the most progressive people in the United States with me. He has the big experience changing with American society, and we would like that David give you a small actualization about what will happen in Cuba right now, and how you, through your sectors, through the cultural sector, can build a bridge of love with Cuba. David.
All right. Hello, guys. Thank you so much for giving us the opportunity to talk to you in a very, in a beautiful space that you have created here in LA, in a space where we can sit among friends, among family, among people that we have known for many years. But since we're so far away, we know ourselves from correspondence, from talking online on WhatsApp, but physically we are within the heart. And I am very grateful, together with my colleague Yasser, to be visiting the beautiful city of LA, to have friends like John, like Susan, like Mark, to be helping us move around, because that is what true solidarity is, true friendship is. And before I begin, I just wanted to ask you, how many of you have been to Cuba before? All right, so a good number, a good quorum. How many times? Oh my God. Okay, so we're among friends. We're among friends. How many of you went to Cuba this year? All right, the number goes down. How many of you have been to Cuba in the last 5 years? All right, 50-50. So, I just got back. I just got back from Cuba, 15 days ago. And to be honest, it's gotten really difficult, the situation in our country. We are having a lot of trouble getting basic needs, basic issues. As Yasser was talking about, it's about survival. It's about resisting one of the cruelest and longest standing blockade that any country has ever, persisted against in history. I remember our friend who is ex-president Andrés Manuel López Obrador, he a few years ago he said that Cuba was the new Numancia, right? Numancia is one of the cities or nation states that actually resisted for a very long time the siege of the Roman Empire many centuries ago. Obviously, it was a very symbolic gesture by Manuel López Obrador, but filled with a lot of truth and a lot of meaning, because many countries around the world, you have been seeing what's going on. They have been threatened by different, economic coercive measures, sanctions, etc. Many of them have, changed their position in regards to different specific policies towards the United States. But our country, the people of Cuba, they deserve the Nobel Peace Prize for having resisted for more than 65 years a siege, a political, economic siege. We call it a blockade, and there is, the legal, the judiciary, sector. They have like a big discussion, a big debate about whether what Cuba is going through is either blockade or embargo. We are very, we are very clear about it. It's a blockade because a blockade is an act of war in times of peace, and that is what we are going through, because maybe there are not bombs being dropped on our country, but there are economic bombs. When you are put in the state sponsors of terrorism list for more than almost 6 years now or 7 years now, when you have been enforced more than 243 economic measures in the first Trump administration, something that didn't change during the Biden administration and that now has been reinforced in the current scenario, obviously, you are going to have a lot of trouble. So for us, it's our honor as Cubans to be standing here in the United States and talking for our people. It's the least that we can do for our people, because those are the ones that, are going through the toughest moments. Right now, we are, sitting down in a comfortable venue. We are, we have everything we need, even though, everybody's struggling. But in Cuba right now, the people are having a hard time on a daily basis, getting through the day. And it is our job to, to get the message through, to get the people of the United States to know what's going on, to know that, that we have friends in the United States that are totally against their country's policy that has been obsolete for 65 years, and that there has to be a path, for a better understanding between our peoples. And there is nothing better than cultural diplomacy for that. So I am very happy to be the guy who represents that sector in the embassy. To be able to build bridges of culture, to build bridges of diplomacy through arts, through poetry, through music, through films. Just 10 minutes ago, we were talking with our friend over here about what we can be doing in this beautiful Beyond Baroque institution, talking about books, talking about poetry. So, we are very happy to have friends that are pushing for film festivals in different states of the country, and that are interested in visiting our country and coming back with a message, coming back with renewed energies, because that is something beautiful about my country. When you go to Cuba, you come with renewed energies, and that energy, gives you strength to come back again and see what you can do for the Cuban people, because at the end of the day, we are one race, race of the humankind. And I am very happy to be here. I think it would be good if you guys, have any questions. I know that it has become more of a political talk. So if you have, questions about culture, we'll be happy to answer them.
Okay. Thank you, David. No, don't go away. Don't go away. Come over here, stand here. Francisco Letelier, would you like to come up and help us with this dialogue? And also, Yasser, you're welcome to join us up here if you'd like to. And I think one of the questions that we want to lead off with was Trini's question about how is it with Trump in power now? He was in power before. What was that like? We had Biden. didn't change anything. And so what's it like? What's it like?
Yeah. The Trump administration, they pursued obviously a complete pressure, high pressure policy against the Cuban economy and the Cuban people in its first term. One of the last actions that the Trump administration took was putting Cuba on the state sponsors of terrorism list. This isn't just a designation. This isn't just a common list of just putting your name on a paper. This actually has coercive effects against the Cuban people. Being put on this list means that you are tagged with a scarlet letter on your forehead that says Cuba. Every time that Cuba pops up on a transaction, economic bank transaction, just any sort of money transfer among banks, this gets automatically canceled and frozen. So there is an example that has been provided by our top officials that in the 2-3 days after Cuba was put on this list in the year 2021 to be exact, about 40 banks left the country. Banks that had investments in Cuba, banks that had businesses in Cuba, banks that had credit allocated in our country, they just decided to go because they cannot take that risk, the risk of being dealing with a sponsor of terrorism. But that isn't only the effect that we are suffering right now. The terrorist list designation actually has also an effect directly towards tourism. So, for example, you guys probably know about the ESTA visa waiver that is given to Europeans and some countries in the Western Hemisphere. This is basically an electronic waiver that you are given as a European citizen when you want to travel to the U.S. You don't need to go to a consulate to seek for a visa. You just do apply online, very easy form, no hassle, no money. It's very easy. But if you dare as a European to travel to Cuba, you lose that visa waiver. You lose the possibility of having that visa waiver. So obviously many Europeans that were traveling, every year to Cuba, just in the last couple 4-5 years, have decided to go to other countries. They rather go, when they go to Cuba, they go to have a good time, to go on vacations, to go for tourism. They don't go thinking about, politics. So they just rather go to Punta Cana, Cancun, other places in Latin America with beautiful beaches, just like Cuba. And obviously, we have lost about 400,000 tourists in the last few years, and that has had a horrible impact on our economy. Tourism for the last 30 years has been the main source of income, of fresh, foreign income in our country. So these are just two effects of the designation of Cuba as a sponsor of terrorism. But to add on top of that, you have 243 measures that were imposed very chirurgically, I don't know if that is the term, in order to affect the economy of Cuba, specific sectors of economy that are dynamic and fruitful. And this did not change at all during the Biden administration. For the last 4 years, all of these measures were kept and maintained, and they just decided to ignore our country and use excuses for ignoring us and go on with their lives. The Biden administration, unfortunately, too late and too little, took Cuba out of the state sponsor of terrorism list, but he did it 3 days before leaving office. So Donald Trump, the first executive measure that he took on January 20th, one of the first ones was putting Cuba back on the list, which at the same time shows you that this is all about politics. There is no moral or, real argument behind putting Cuba on the list. For many years, they used several excuses. This time, they did not care to use at least one single excuse for putting Cuba on the list. And now the situation In regards to cultural exchange, it has not changed much, although there are people that are just deciding not to travel as much to our country for cultural exchanges because, for the pressure that they are feeling. Many of them sometimes are migrants here in the United States, so they have to deal with, their own internal issues here in the United States, which are numerous right now. And obviously this, slows down our engagement, the fruitfulness of building cultural bridges. But, we keep working, we keep struggling, we keep on promoting festivals that we have in our country, which are very popular. We have the Havana Jazz Plaza every January. We have the International Book Fair every February. We have the Cigar Festival, which is very important because it helps us to fundraise money for the health sector, which is a funny contradiction. But, they raise a whole lot of money for the health sector. And
it's a very good contradiction.
Yeah. As long as we get the money to the health sector, that's good. And we have so many, beautiful experiences in Cuba. The film festivals in December, the ballet festivals, and we also have International Fair of Tourism. Fairs regarding social and political studies. And we keep on working, to find a better future for our people and to get out of the situation where we are. We are not passive. We are not sitting down and, just waiting for things to change. We are on a daily basis looking for a path out of our current situation.
I just want to add, in order to give you a more, to clarify how is designated the policy of the United States toward Cuba right now in the current administration. For us, it's so difficult to separate what is happening in the Trump administration and what is happening in the man of Donald Trump, the president of the United States. Many people affirm that the issue of the Cuba is not a priority for Donald Trump right now because they are his own goals, and Cuba is not a priority for it. I don't know. That's the most of the people in the United States says. But unfortunately, inside the Donald Trump administration, there are 2 or 4 or 5 people, no more than 5 people in key positions that take with the power of decision and very near from the ear of Donald Trump. It's not a secret. We have the case of the most powerful case in Macor is the Secretary of State, but also we have people in Congress, in Senate, also in the House. So what all those people have in common? Those 4 people come from Florida, from South Florida. So, if you put in the map, South Florida is a short point, is the big geography of the United States, but they don't mind the policy toward Cuba. So that is happening in the United States for decades, but is that what happened today with the issue of Cuba? It looks like it shows that Cuba is not an issue for Donald Trump, and he left the Cuba issue for others, and those people is very harmful and very, very, very Cuban haters. I don't know what I can assure what those people receive for that policy toward Cuba. But the majority of the population from Florida are Cubans. The statistic of the demographic statistic of the United States affirm that for South Florida, not the rest of the states. But the majority of those people, the people who are most powerful in the South Florida, comes to Cuba at the beginning of the triumph of the revolution in the 60s. So they people helped to build the states. The people are very powerful inside. The people obtain money and have been live during their whole life at the expense of the U.S. budget to build a policy toward Cuba. That's what happened right now. I don't know what will happen in the near future, but while these people still in those positions, taking decision, it's so difficult that the policy toward Cuba could happen. So What is the good news of that? That we continue to resist. We continue resisting, but we continue resisting with the support of the solidarity around the world. But inside this country, we continue resisting with the support of the American people, with the voice of you, through poetry, through film, through any statement that you, does any things that you share in your social media in favor of Cuba. You are telling the truth of Cuba. And you are saying to your authorities, hey, take care, be careful. We support Cuba. We support the real story of the Cuban people. You are lying. That's why today in Congress, there are many bills, because if you see the correlation of force in Congress right now against Cuba, between Senate and House, there are only 2 bills in favor to Cuba, but there are only 10 bills harmful for Cuba, to try to suffocate the Cuban people. Those bills do not pass today because the American people, are telling the story to your representatives, to your authorities, hey, you need to vote against any law against the Cuban people, because they are human beings, and we are neighbors, we are friends.
Well, obviously the crowd in this room needs moderation. So I'm just here. One thing I want to say is that I'm going to leave the stage after this brief thing. But many of us in this room are cultural workers. And many of us, like, for example, I just saw Walter Lippmann, who has been an invaluable news source. And just as we in the United States need to continue to create ties amongst one another and communicate with each other so that we can do our part in the whole idea of the blockade and the sanctions against Cuba ever since I was born has always been to divide us. And we need to continue to say, we are Cuba, somos Cuba, somos America. Cuba is not this entity that's been blocked and is separate from our idea of being American. And this is really important for us to communicate, that America is not this false projection of Donald Trump. America is us in this room. And I'm so glad to be in this room with Luis Rodriguez, for example, who is just el mero chicano escritor, poeta, pero también, and what's really needed is the internationalist feeling, because this country is also divided amongst us. We don't know each other's history. It's a convoluted history. So what I want to say is any opportunity for us to connect with one another around issues that bring Cuba naturally into all the riches that we really have as the Americas and the world. We need to continue to include Cuba in all our conversations so that Cuba is always in the room. Just like right now, we need to have Palestine in the room with us always, and there's so many striking parallels, and it's such an important moment to point out the parallels between the blockade and everything that has happened in Palestine since the Nakba. There's so many parallels about isolation, sanctions, and keeping people outside of, the world. Anyhow, I'm going to leave the stage.
Thank you. That was beautiful. Yeah. So that. Yeah.
I wanted to thank Suzanne, Yvonne, other organizers here for hosting this event, for inviting organizations, the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee, others to participate in this. One of the big campaigns that collectively we're doing around the country, and I invite any of you to join with us on this, is organized by the Global Health Partners out of New York. And this is to raise necessary medical aid, solidarity, medical instruments, goods, etc. for Cuba. Because of the blockade, Cuba cannot buy anything from the United States that has 10% U.S. components. So you know, if you go to the hospital, the quantity of material that there is that is produced in the U.S. that Cuba cannot buy. So we collect this, and with a group, not just tourists, we sent an entire shipping container in February to Cuba that also included 500,000 pain pills, because the main hospitals in Cuba had no ibuprofen, no aspirin, no Tylenol. So we are launching a second effort, a second container with Global Health Partners. So we welcome any support from any of you. This is in collaboration with a group called Not Just Tourists, with Uriel Ramirez, who is a graduate of the Latin American School of Medicine, who just procured 50,000 sutures, which are necessary for any operation in which Cuba doesn't have. So you could speak to Teto or me afterwards if you would like to help in this humanitarian solidarity campaign.
And tomorrow night?
You can announce it.
Well, no, what's your event? Go ahead.
Tomorrow night we're hosting David and Yasser again, along with labor leaders from the machinists, other unions, and spokespeople from our recent 60-person delegation to Cuba, which took place over the International Workers' Day holiday, which is a combination labor leaders and youth activists who are learning and understanding what Cuba solidarity means, what life is like in Cuba, what the accomplishments of the revolution and what a revolutionary society means in a place that's actually practicing it, and they're bringing that back to build Cuba solidarity committees and work across the country here in the United States. So that's tomorrow in Wilmington at the Machinist Hall, and there are flyers for them. We hope to see you all there, but there are flyers for that at the table at the front.
I also wanted to acknowledge some people that arrived recently. We have Ericka Verba, who's a professor and the head of Latin American Studies at Cal State LA. And she just completed her lifelong study of a book, produced a book about Viola Tapara. And Marty Riddle is sitting next to her. And Marty Riddle, as recent, was with the Grand Performances downtown. She was a director there for 6 years, 8 years. How long were you there? 5 years. And so they're both originally were with the band Sabia. If you remember Sabia, they just they did a lot of Nueva Canción, and they met in college. And we're glad to have them here. And I'm sorry, I don't know your name.
I'm Scott, and I actually have a question.
Oh, what, the woman in front of you?
Oh, sorry.
I was like, where are you? My name is Dayren Santa Maria. I am from Cuba. So I'm from Matanzas. And I came to the United States in 2002 in Tampa, Los Angeles in 2007, and I've been here since. I'm a musician, I play violin, and I'll be performing tomorrow.
Yes, I hope I'm going to give you an opportunity to brag a little bit about some of the achievements of Cuba in spite of the horrible blockade. Many of us have learned recently that Cuba has made so many advances in medicine that are comparable to some of the most advanced, quote-unquote, countries in the world who have, all great resources at their fingertips. Like, for instance, Cuba's biological medicine achievements and the medicine you've developed that prevents amputations from sugar diabetes. And I'm actually wondering how that industry, that ability to do research, has been impacted by
Thank you so much. You should sit down with us here. Yeah, but that's a great question. I wanted to start by saying, I wanted to comment on what you said initially about the U.S. trying to isolate Cuba. And I think it's the other way around. The United States is isolating itself. Cuba is not isolated. We have beautiful relations, diplomatic relations with 99.9% of the countries around the world. We have developed economic relations with Western European countries. I mean, we don't feel isolated. It is the United States that is constantly isolating itself in the international panorama, in the UN. Every year when we vote against the blockade, when we vote against the embargo, that only 2 states vote in favor of blocking the Cuban people. And you can imagine the name of those states. We don't feel isolated. And that also reminds me of our national hero, Jose Marti. Jose Marti, not that we're talking about poetry, about literature, he was a great poet. Everything that he said was poetry. Every word that came out from his mouth was poetry. And he used to talk about Nuestra America, right? It's our America. It's our Americas. It's in plural, the Americas. And that reminds me of, Biden. I got very angry, 2 years ago. Biden, trying to be nice to the Latin American countries, saying, no, you're not the backyard. You're the front yard. We're nobody's backyard. We're nobody's yard at all. The Americas is a beautiful continent. It's a beautiful garden of different sovereign states that some of them are more independent than others. But we should live in peace because we are neighbors and we are human beings. And at the end of the day, that's all. That's it. That's it. We're human beings. So it's ridiculous that we keep pursuing a policy in this country for so many years and expect for a different outcome in regards to our country. And sorry, I got sidetracked about the medical issue. That was a great question. In fact, we have 3 beautiful medicines that we try to promote here in the United States because we think we could actually be helpful for the people of the United States, which suffer on a different, on a correlation, on a different correlation. It's not, I don't know the term in English, it's not reciprocal, the medical, sufferings that the people in the United States have. So we know for sure that the diabetic patients, many of them are from the Black African American community, and that they are disproportionately suffering from this issue and horribly suffering amputations. And incredibly, we have a medicine that treats that treats middle and early stages of the diabetic foot ulcer, and we prevent amputations, and we promote that medicine, and we sell it. It's approved internationally, and we sell it to many countries around the world. And it's crazy that, in the 21st century, the United States, because of political reasons, does not accept us from, bringing this medicine to the U.S. We also promoting, we have a medicine which is called Neuroepo that is treating early and middle stages of Alzheimer's. And it's basically a nasal spray. It's a nasal spray. Can you imagine that you can heal your grandparents, your elderly, just by using a nasal spray? In the United States, you have an alternative which generates brain bleeding, hemorrhage. And that's the alternative that you're using. And the United States government right now is blocking all of the actions that we are promoting to exchange with American biotech industries, with American universities that want to actually, study it, that want to exchange on it. But there is one example of a successful medicine that we actually have a joint venture with the United States that has survived the 3 Trump administrations. We don't say 2 Trump, we say 3 Trump administrations, which is the Sima-Vac, which is a lung cancer vaccine, which is being still investigated. I think it's in phase 3 investigation, research, in a place called Roswell Park in Buffalo, New York. So, we have a good precedent and example of, something that we can do good for humanity, politics aside. And we have to just pick up on that and try to see if we can do more. And what Mark was saying, what you guys are doing, it's not a small thing. It's not, appeasing in a big mountain of issues. You guys are saving lives. You guys are saving lives of the Cuban people on a daily basis. We have to remember that during the COVID pandemic, Cuba was lucky enough to be able to develop 5 vaccine candidates, and we had the vaccines, but we did not have something as basic as syringes. Can you imagine? We needed 30 million of syringes to vaccinate our people, our population. And you guys, you made it happen. You made it happen. You made a syringe drive all around the United States, and in a record time, you managed to donate about 30 million, more or less, syringes to our country. So yes, you did save lives.
Wow.
You did save thousands of people in Cuba. And I mean, there are countless of experiences of things that you guys have done and that you keep on doing. And we are eternally grateful because, solidarity, it comes both ways. So we are grateful. Yeah.
How do you account for the huge ability of Cuba to make such advances when you would think that other countries that have so much science would be doing it? Why is Cuba such a forerunner in all that?
Well, basically, Cuba for the last 30 to 35 years, we have focused on developing our biotech industry, basically because for many years we were dependent on importations to treat our people. And we decided in a moment that we had basic good economic opportunities to invest on that. And we developed a really good and really strong biotech industry in our country, which is based mostly on preventive medicine, which is a basic difference, an elemental difference that we see in other countries. The other countries do not promote preventive medicine. They promote medicines that treats basically emergency issues or long stage problems or symptoms. So Cuba, our system, you might like it, you might not, you might have political positions about it, but the healthcare system is focused on preventing an ailment. That's why they have what we call el universo. We have the universal of medical attention. So we have a national system, provincial system, municipality system, and we have like the clinics on every block, on every, the streets. And this clinic doctor is like, it's called the médico de la familia, no? The doctor of the family. This person knows what are the ailments of the people around her universe. So she knows that Bob's family has a history of cancer, and Martha's family has a history of heart diseases. So she knows, this person knows that in an early moment of these families, descendants, the generations, that they have to treat this, that they have to prevent these diseases, because at the end of the day, it comes at a cost. Treating a long-stage cancer comes, at the end of the day, is very expensive. But if you treat a small issue, a headache, a fever, and you investigate and you research and you cut that disease from scratch, it's much cheaper. So it's not only an ideological issue, it's also a pragmatic and economic issue.
Well, continues adding to my colleague said, it was a very, very brilliant idea of our commander-in-chief, Fidel Castro, He made the comments, He said, well, today it's so difficult for the country to support the health system, but maybe in the 10 years it could be more critical. I need to invest today, not in the future. I need to organize the fuel source that we receive and directly to the health system today. That's why we have several medical and doctors in Cuba, and we can assure that we have the privilege to export doctors to other countries. That was the beginning of we used to call the Cuban medical brigade, the collaboration medical system through the world, trying to save lives to not only in Cuba but also in the most necessity population around the world. But nowadays there are a very big campaign founded in this country, of course, founded in this administration and founded in the Department of State, try to criminalize the medical collaboration of Cuba in other countries, because they are saying very lies. I don't want to repeat because for me it's very hard to feel it, but they are saying that they are still slaves, we torture the medicals, we exploit the doctors. No one doctors go to other country obligate for the country. It's the personal decision. Because that doctors sign a contract, that contracts decide to go outside to leave their family, because in the practical way they are going to receive a compensation of that. They have to resolve the problem that they have in their own family, but also it's the humanitarian component. Being part of that mission is a privilege for any Cuban. For us being here in the first line of defense of Cuba is a privilege. Imagine for one doctor that are saving life not only in Cuba, in other countries. As I said before, my previous post was in Ecuador. Well, what do you think that was the Cuban medical collaboration? Inside the Amazonia, in the most remote places, in the communities of in the indigenous community, where the Ecuadorian doctors don't want to go. There are the Cuban doctors. So, who slave go to take that risk? We don't receive the compensation. There is a big lie that are made in the United States, and I don't know. I am not. Like a pitonisa, but it could be the next pretext to be more hard policy toward Cuba with this pretext,
I just want to say one last thing. It's important for all of us here, because I think we all agree. We love Cuba. We know the importance of Cuba in the lives of the American people, but I think the important thing for me is that for the rest of us, we don't always connect the dots. We need to connect the dots to why the U.S. is so poor and getting more impoverished. And we have policies against Cuba that we do. There's a dots we made. Even with Gaza, we need to connect it. The military, that we spend so much on military, that's why we don't have a good health care system. That's why we don't have housing for everybody, because it's all about the military, and part of that military is justifying the blockade in Cuba, but also the destruction of Gaza. We don't connect the dots. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. It's time for us to bridge, because the fascists are bridging to my family. They got Trumpers among some of my family members. But we, who know better, who know the situation, we're not bridging to some of them. You know what I'm saying? We need to speak to more people. And I'm not against gatherings like this, because we need to affirm who we are, but we need to break out, honestly. Cuba, Gaza, housing, everything we're going through is all tied in. And we need to find those things that tie them in, so that people who may not necessarily agree with the politics of Cuba can agree that we shouldn't blockade Cuba. You understand what I'm saying? Can agree that we shouldn't be putting our money to kill people in Gaza. That's what I would say to everybody. What can we do to bridge that, so that we're actually helping people? Because I think we need to do more. I just feel that that's what it means if we do more.
My name's Patty Prickett. I've been lucky enough to be in Cuba twice, and also met with the Cuban ambassador to South Africa when I was studying with Father Michael Lapsley in South Africa. One of the things that I was one of millions of things I was most impressed with was how respectfully and openly they dealt with unhoused populations. In particular, I'm thinking of La Guanera. And I mean, that was the most amazing place that I've ever seen when we got to meet with Gigi and see everything that they had done, and how they went, rather than decide that poor people just were lazy, they decided maybe we should ask the poor people what they want. And Fidel went to La Guanera and said, what do you want? And made it happen. I mean, and it's so basic, it's such basic respect. And the lack of knowledge of this country about the reality of Cuba. It just blows my mind, and I don't know how we confront that, how we get that information out when I talk to people about the reality of Cuba, about the literacy museum. I mean, about all of it, and they don't know. It's like they're sort of baffled. They're but it's oppressive. But it's insane, and I don't know how to fight that.
Well, it's our daily lives here, is deconstructing a lie that is being told, again and again and again and again, and that telling a lie many times doesn't make it true, but it makes us harder for us to destroy it, right? I totally agree with you.
How you can support more is a very difficult question for us, not because we don't know how to answer. Basically because, we are doing a role of diplomatic here in the United States, And what we can express, for example, that you can see the last experiences, what the American people are continuing doing during those years in favor of Cuban people, but because you have been very effective on that. The only thing that we can suggest to you is it's necessary to be very, very creative. Yes, it's true, but any single action is important. Any single action is important. Sometimes people ask me, "No, I'm going to go to the Congress to do to manifest." No. It's your decision. It's not my decision. But for us here in LA, in that place, the most important is strengthening unity around Cuba. Strengthening unity around Cuba. The successful here is try to work together between all organizations, all individuals from your sector, from the religion sector, from the cultural sector, from the academic sector, from the medias. Integrate your actions, work together, and spend maybe a 5% of your day-to-day thinking in Cuba. For us, it could be amazing. It could be amazing. There are many initiatives. We have in this country more than 75 organizations of solidarity with Cuba. You can integrate with them. But if you want to go by yourself, no problem. Join to one of those initiatives. We have several. Mark Freeman, he spent every year in force during the whole year organizing delegations to send labor unions, young people, to Cuba to receive political education, to see the Cuba with their own eyes. That's important for us too. That's important. But we'll together here in the United States, maybe create a Cuban poetry festival here in that beautiful place. Be creative. I don't know. Go to the school. Speak about Cuba. Speak. Help us speaking about Cuba. It's important for us telling the truth, telling how Cuba really is. I don't know how can I say, but you can check all media that exists around the solidarity movement. The National Network on Cuba has a very big platform, where they share all the initiatives that they are doing. Join that. Join it. Join it. Don't free.
Thank you.
All right. Okay.
So much. Okay. I do value what you said. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. Louise and the lady here as well. Because even more nowadays, disinformation is such a big issue. It's a big deal, you know. I don't know parties here, like which party you are defined by, but for example, the Republican Party is all about misinformation, and they don't care, and they value that, and they will die for it, and they will keep, supporting that disinformation. And over 60 years, like the embargo has lasted over 60 years, and it's all disinformation. And the most dangerous thing is that it's affecting the Cuban people tremendously. And it's not all layers of the Cuban are not affected in the same way, but there is a big population, a big part of the population that is like, they don't know what else to do, because it's just horrible to live under those circumstances. And what happens is that even here in this country, the Cubans don't know the reality of the issue and don't want to accept it. In Cuba, they don't know not everyone, but most of the people that I know don't know the reality of the issue. And they don't know how to confront that reality because there's so much misinformation everywhere. Besides that, they're going through so much hardship that it's hard for them to accept anything. So just an example, the embargo, the blockade is a big issue, and that is why the situation in Cuba is so detrimental. As a student in Cuba, I have been not my whole life, but since I was 7 years old, I was in a boarding school, which is like the whole week you spend at boarding school. So I went through the boarding school, first on Matanzas, then I went to Havana, in la Escuela Nacional de Artes, in the boarding school. So when it hit 1989, and the support from Russia, ended basically little by little, we felt it tremendously. We were leaving right there to school. Like there was a day that we would wake up and we would eat at 4 p.m., at 6 p.m. During the day, nothing. It was not such an issue because we were all going through the same circumstances. So you learn to be happy with it. And as Cubans, that's one of our, our virtues. Like we're happy, whatever, just give me sugar. We were eating sugar, and that was fine. We were dancing and having fun. When we were tired of eating sugar, we were putting adding water to that. We were okay until 5, 6 p.m. whenever they were able to make some food for us. So everything, like the shoes, we were able to understand that there was a big issue, a big problem. We weren't getting the support that we were getting before. So the sanctions incremented tremendously. So for many Cubans right now that I have spoken with, I don't speak with them frequently because after they say those things, I'm like, it's just like crazy. They think that the embargo is something pretend. Cubans in Cuba, they think, oh no, that's, the government because it's just a justification. They just blame the embargo, blaming them. In here, Cubans say that they just blame it with the embargo. So it's like the level of, because if you think logically, and you have to understand that it doesn't make sense at all. So what I did is like, I went to AI, right, ChatGPT. It's like, just go there and type, if the US would have the same amount of sanctions that Cuba has, what would happen? It would be even worse. Like the level that Cuba is right now is at a greater level that if the US would have even half of the sanctions that Cuba has. So it is tremendous, it's really important for everyone to know the truth. How do we do that? The work that you guys are doing is amazing, the work that Mark is doing is amazing, but there's so many people suffering. It's like, we shouldn't wait any longer. Like there's so many other ways that we can do something about it. I'm telling everyone in many different ways. It's not just like because of the backlash that some Cubans get or supporting that. If you say something good about Cuba, it's like, oh, you're a socialist. Oh, you're communist. You're like, so Cubans are afraid of talking about it. They're afraid of saying the truth. They just stay silent. But doing a documentary, like putting things up front, bad from and good from both places, like, and not just one, a bunch of series. Everyone loves Netflix, everyone loves series. Like when people don't have anything to do, they just go there to find some kind of media to relate or to relax, and to have a bunch, not just one, a bunch of things saying the truth of what is really going on. that will be helpful for people in Cuba and also for people here to understand that it needs to stop. It really needs to stop. It's just like, it's really, a problem, and it can stop because everything is based on lies. I perform with, I have my own band, but I also perform with different groups. One of the groups that I perform is with the actor Andy Garcia. He's from Cuba. I have spoken with him several times, not several times, but before when I met him, maybe 12 years ago. Why do you go to Cuba? No, I don't go there, blah, blah, all these, silly. But every time that we have a show, it's like the amount of lies and things that are coming out of it just doesn't make sense at all. He loves to reference Jose Marti, talking about freedom and talking about that. And I am like, it is painful for me as a Cuban, as a black person who endures the difficulties of being black and being a Latino and being a woman as well in this country. So the thing is that for Cubans, the Cuban Revolution was amazing for everyone who was not rich and who was not getting, living the life with the Batista government, which was most of the Cuban population. It was really hard for black people because there was segregation in Cuba before the Revolution. There was segregation. And it was not like Jim Crow here, but there was segregation there. And the opportunities were not the same for everyone. Not everyone could do whatever they want. Like right now, everyone can go to school, anyone can be a doctor. Before it wasn't like that. So those issues, the revolution was good because of that. But right now here, in a lot of places in Miami, a lot of places here, you open your mouth and you say something good about the revolution and it's just horrible. You have committed, a sin, and it's so sad that those beautiful values and those beautiful things that the revolution did are just buried and we're not able to talk about it because otherwise you're socialist, you're this, you're that, you're labeled by so many things, and that triggers into not getting enough jobs to support yourself, not being being neglected from the Cuban community, and they're powerful, they have money, many of them. So it's really a problem. So the only thing that I can think of that would make it effective is for us to talk about it, but everywhere. It has to be everywhere. It should be everywhere because it has been so long, 60 years already. It's not fair. We're getting old. Oh my God. We have to do something, right? Fidel Castro. When you study Fidel, it's who was he? Fidel was a student from the university. He was studying law, and he was not poor. He was not black. He was not being affected by the system at that time. He and many others that fought for the same thing, they were in a good, per se, financial position. But even though they were able to say, you know what, this is not okay. Let's, fight for whatever we think that is better so that the people who are struggling don't have to struggle anymore and at least have a fair chance of getting whatever they need to. So now when you think about it, where did you see that? Where did you see a 21-year-old, affluent guy, doing that? He didn't need to do that. Many of them didn't need to do that. But somehow, that is so much, that is so important, so valuable what happened, and everything is buried just because you cannot say anything about good about the revolution. That needs to be, dismantled. That lie needs to be dismantled because it's also affecting the Cuban culture, the Cuban music, the Cuban musicians. It's not fair, what is happening with the Cuban music. There's so many musicians that the music is not blasting all around the world because of these problems. Because many people are blocking their music. We need to do better. We need to do so much better. Alberto Alvarez, ya se murió, Pablo Milanés, ya se murieron. Everyone needed to know the beauty of their songs, of the lyrics. Now what you get is not that at all. Bad Bunny. It's really? Are you kidding me? What is the message of the song? And it's blasting everywhere, and we have this amazing culture rich with wonderful musicians that are gone already. And I mean, like, yeah, so I am, whatever I can do to support, like something, we really need to do something. It cannot just be like, I mean, we have to maintain what we have, like, keep helping. I mean, it has to be even greater. So my belief is that if we go even bigger, talking to people, we would get even more support. Because people will see that it's not just a lie that people are perpetrating and say, oh no, that's horrible. Cuba, oh no, yeah, but the system is, no. It's not true, and we need to let them, you know? So I'm sorry that I...
Thank you. That was very powerful, and thank you. Thank you for that. I agree with basically all your comments and arguments. And basically, we were using the same talking points with our colleague a few hours ago, and that's what's going on in Cuba. Unfortunately, it's an uphill battle between David and Goliath, and unfortunately, social media has a lot of weight on that. The younger generations are consuming a lot of social media. They have forgotten, to read a newspaper. They would never reach out to a newspaper or to turn on the TV and watch the news on TV. They rather, consume themselves through social media, through Reels, through TikTok, and obviously nothing good is coming out of that. I mean, and at the same time, you have the United States Federal Congress that funds every year, every fiscal year, between $30 and $50 million just to generate that propaganda misinformation machine, just to create it, just to, have it recircle. At the same time, it's not my place to comment on that, but if I were an American citizen, I would be saying, well, you're wasting your taxes on that because it's been 65 years.
My point.
Yeah, that was your point.
People here. Somebody complained to me that Havana is very poor. I've been to Havana. There's more people living in the streets in Los Angeles. In other words, the connection is not to get people to think, well, I got to believe in the Cuban system. No. Blockading Cuba keeps them poor, keeps them in the street. And I think that's what I'm trying to say. We have to connect the poverty in this country to how the U.S. treats the rest of the world, starting with Cuba. But if we make it an issue that I got to love Cuba, I love the social, no, it's not going to work. I love Cuba. That's not the point. The point is it's hurting us to keep doing the blockade. You know what I'm trying to get at? It's hurting the Cubans, and I'm for that, but it's hurting us. And if we don't make those connections, people aren't going to get it. And I think that's how we connect with everything, because people here they're suffering, and they're being blinded. You know what I'm trying to get at? We have work to do here. We have a revolution in this country, and it has to be started with the people here, and the poor people themselves, like you're saying, are the ones that are most impacted, are the ones that need to be needed. And that's who we have to work with. We're not going to save Cuba or Gaza if we don't do something here about this country. You know what I'm saying? And that's what I would say. Let's connect with Cuba better. Let's go to the people and say, can you live this way? All the blockades in the world, and you're still got nothing. If we had something, maybe it would be an argument we couldn't make, but they don't got nothing, and they're blockading Cuba. You know what I'm saying? We got to connect us.
The comments you were making, they are hard on, as they say here in the U.S. I mean, you are not the reflection of what another person from another country think about a Cuban in the United States, for example, because the Cubans that you see on TV, that you see on social media, are not the working class Cubans, the black Cubans, the women Cubans, the immigrants Cubans. They only see the Republicans that have, for many decades, become rich out of this anti-Cuban policy in Florida, in Miami. This is what they are seeing. This is what they are being reflected on. They are very white. They look very blonde. Some of them are, bright eyes. They look very gringo. And at the same time,
none of them born in Cuba.
Many of them have not been born in Cuba. The politicians that have Cuba as their number one subject on the federal level, none of them have visited Cuba. None of them were born in Cuba. They speak for the will of the Cuban people. They supposedly speak for the people of their districts in Florida, when you yourself know that is wrong, because more than 50% of the people there do not agree, at least silently, do not agree with what is happening. But it's their number one issue. So how can we change that reality? There has to be other people. There has to be other leaders that picks up the mantle that other people in government, in Congress, for many decades have had. And unfortunately, it's not.
Now we have the benefit of what is causing the problem, not the problem, but one of the problems that you said is social media. We can use that.
Yeah.
Like I say, we have to use that, but not just a little bit. A lot more than what they use it. We have to use a lot more documentaries, a lot more people like talking to, someone who wants to come clean from the CIA, from the FBI and tell the truth, like this is what happened. Like those documentaries that you see, like we need not just one, many of those, and there are many people who want to come clean because they know how much the US and their policies have affected many places. Like what happened in Venezuela, it's not a coincidence. Venezuela was one of the richest countries in Latin America. When they had the government that they wanted to have, when Chavez was there, they were still very powerful. What happened to it? Just because now because their policies are poor and they're dying and they're starving. No. Because when they were rich and they were powerful, the government was the same way. So what happened? Of course, the U.S. wants that oil, and the U.S. is getting away with so much. So there has to be accountability. How? Like, get it everywhere. I'm sorry.
No, I had a question, and Miya.
Agree.
I think, what you're talking about Cuba and the youth, and props to Luis, to Trini, to everybody that works on reality and on authenticity and words and art and creation, because so many of our young people here in the United States are also being brainwashed. They're also the social media, the rise of the white young men Republicans is just insane what's going on. It's like they feel that it's fine to, be assholes. Because this is what's being pumped out. Misogyny is great. Our values are completely being eroded here in this country, and it's just criminal because of the leadership that we've got. Okay, so we all agree with that. My question, what I was thinking of, and it has to do with, the whole issue with Francisco, who talks about, Palestine and the whole years of the blockade, and then also Palestine and stuff. And I think about what the documentary did for the one that won the international documentary, the award, the Academy Award for International Film about the West Bank and how that ended up, piercing through at an incredible international level. I think people were exposed to what was going on in the West Bank. How people were treated when you had Palestinian and Israeli together, doing this film. And I'm wondering if there's anything in Cuba on the film or arts or documentary or something along those lines, that actually shows what's going on in Cuba with efforts of trying to actually break that wall, because, hats off to that documentary to penetrate Hollywood like they did with Hollywood and who ends up really almost controlling Hollywood in a lot of ways. It's very difficult for people to speak up, about this in Hollywood.
Yeah, there is a media outlet that is more than a media outlet. It's fantastic. They are actually from the U.S., but they are based in Cuba. They are called Belly of the Beast. You've probably heard about them. It rings a bell because they are really good. And they are really successful communicating, the right messages. and they have done a wonderful job, a masterful job. They have had like 4 or 5 1-hour documentaries in the past 5 years. They just turned 5 years old, so they're like a baby right now. They are toddlers, but they are wonderful, and they have a really good journalist that works alongside them. The Liz Oliva. She it was last year, no? Last year she did a tour around the United States, around different parts of the United States, and it was immensely successful. So I advise you guys, look up Belly of the Beast. They are from the US, based in Cuba, but they are really good in what they're doing. They are not, a propaganda machine from the Communist Party of Cuba. They are independent journalists doing a wonderful job, very young, really getting through the fiber of what's going on in Cuba and how the United States is harming us.
What's going on inside the United States?
And what is going on inside the United States? They interviewed Mott Menendez, and they did a wonderful job. And they went up the hill in Congress and knocking doors, and they recorded it all on their documentary. They have had really good nominations for really good awards. They have already gotten several awards. So I advise you look it up, and if you think it is useful to share, please share. And connect with them. They are wonderful people. Mark knows them very well, and they just recently premiered a documentary about the lady who developed the Alzheimer's medicine, about the life of the lady behind it. So, it's going to the grassroots, going to the people, because sometimes we talk about engineers, scientists, politicians, but these are the everyday life working people that, that they are trying to work for the good of the people.
Miya had a question, I think, Mark, and then Mark.
And then we wrap it up.
Then we need a break.
We need to save for tomorrow.
I just wanted to say I really agree with what Luis said. We need to connect the dots.
Yeah.
And in the United States, there's a lot of really selfish, entitled people. And so, and we have to deal with a lot of them. But, what you were saying that there about the medical breakthroughs, I think that's something that connects with everyone, because everyone has someone that they're related to that has Alzheimer's. I'm as a Japanese American that fought for reparations, we're now supporting the struggle of Black Americans for reparations. And it's, we're trying to get, how do you get all these struggles together, like the, Indigenous People Land Back Program and reparations, we lost land, how does that all fit in? But, when you get something like you were talking about, how black people are more impacted by diabetes, and you have this diabetes, medical breakthrough that's not allowed here, but people don't know about that. That, to me, that's part of reparations. When we talk about reparations, we're talking about not just Black reparations or Japanese. It's like people of color reparations. Everybody that's been, impacted by white supremacist, colonialist efforts and this fascist government. But, I think that there's some really important breakthroughs that have happened in Cuba that have not, especially in the area of health, because that used to be my area, that have not been recognized in this country. And that's one of the ways that we connect the dots. And I think that we just have to go through different avenues, because, like those MAGA people, they're like poor, they're just stupid mouth breathers, and they're going to be the most, among the most impacted by these policies, and like one brother in DC was saying that he worked with Malcolm in organizing the OAAU, and he said one of the things that they found out they were doing wrong is like they might have a meeting or try to spread the word. 20 people would show up, 5 people were right on brother, and the other 15
were undecided, and they would spend all their time on the 15 people. And he said, but now we know, if we spent the time with those 5 people, at the next meeting, we would have double the number, and I think that, that connecting the dots is really important. You have to reach people, any way you can, and not everybody is going to watch Amy Goodman and Democracy Now! And see, these great films. It's up to us to try to bring it to, community meetings and show those films, but on the everyday level, I think stuff like health is really, and so I wanted to, ask you, if you have some thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, what you were saying about the diabetic foot ulcer vaccine that we have, we are searching for partners. So this could be a way of connecting the dots. I mean, you have biotech industries, I imagine, a whole lot of them here in California. So maybe we can do some research, seek people who, they actually have a partner in Ohio, but they are looking for patients and for money. So maybe we can work together, and because they just got a license. So this is good. This is good. This is a positive step. So maybe we can do that.
You identify someone with the ability and the possibility to support, to join this support, this noble cause. Just contact with the embassy. Put in contact with the people that are doing that in Ohio, and imagine.
There's a Japanese institute that's been doing breakthroughs in some areas, and
maybe we can do that.
American, not there's a
it doesn't matter. It's just getting that breakthrough. Mark,
I wanted to second what David said about Belly of the Beast. And if you go to the website of the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee, there are links to their stuff, plus 2 other very good films. One is called Maestra, which is about the literacy campaign, and the other one by Nagash is Cuba in Africa, which is tremendously impactful on Cuba's role in defending Angola and South African state. Lastly, I just wanted to say that I think what Luisa's saying and Miya about collaborating together. I mean, this is something that the LA Hands Off Cuba Committee has been trying to do and has scores of prominent individuals, unions as part of it. And that's because we're focused just on ending the blockade, the sanctions, U.S. out of Guantanamo, Cuba off the SSOT list. But with that message, we go to every Palestine march, every strike, every demonstration, abortion rights, Bernie Sanders, whatever, with the table to promote the ideas raised by Cuba, with little flyers about workers' rights in Cuba versus the U.S., or women's rights and the family code in Cuba versus the denial of women's rights here. But it's that outreach that is absolutely critical to spreading the message. Because I believe that the majority of people in this country, if they knew the truth, right, would be like the majority of people in the world who are against the U.S. blockade of Cuba. And more Cuban Americans are opposed to blockade. They may not support the revolution, but they're opposed to blockade. And especially now with ending TPS, right, for Venezuelans, Haitians, Cubans, this opens up a whole new opportunity for us to have a dialogue with them. Lastly, let me say that things are changing in the U.S. Last fall, we got a resolution through the California AFL-CIO, which represents 2.3 million people, against the blockade and against the SSOT. This is new, right? What is happening in the labor movement is new, and we need to take advantage of it, to take our message to labor, and to get other unions to do what the Longshoremen's Union has done, which is contributing tens of thousands of dollars for syringes, for pacemakers. We think that that can be duplicated in other unions in other cities. So, anybody wants to help, we're all in this together.
Okay, thank you, everyone.
Thank you, David Yasser.